Are you the kind of photographer that when watching a movie or series pauses the television whenever you see a camera on screen and try to identify it? Then you and I have something in common. Thankfully, I have a patient wife because I do it a lot, pretty much every time, even when it cannot possibly exist in the real world, as with this Polaroid-inspired camera in the Flintstones movie. This brings me to my latest rabbit hole. What camera is the Joker using in The Killing Joke? I mean, it's called a Witz, but what was it modeled after? Did the artist use several cameras or design it based on a single model? Welcome to This Old Camera. My name is Azriel, and in this episode we investigate the origins of the Joker's camera in The Killing Joke. I'm no comic historian, so I'll be keeping the history of this legendary story largely unaddressed, but to the uninitiated, The Killing Joke was a comic released in 1988 and is now considered one of the best Batman stories of all time. The Joker believes that all that is required to break someone and change them from normal citizen to insane is one bad day, and so he embarks on a quest to test that theory. It was created by Alan Moore, Brian Boland, and John Higgins. There are many interpretations of The Killing Joke. It's regularly used in flashbacks and is considered by many canon. No, the camera is not a canon, the story is canon. For the purposes of this deep dive, I'll be using the hardcover deluxe edition as a reference for a couple of reasons. The first being that I'm not made of money and won't be purchasing a first edition. Also, the deluxe edition contains information and clues to the origins of the iconic image. Brian Boland, the artist behind it all, was heavily involved in this reissue, including coloring, so I feel it's a reliable source. The best clues to what the camera is are given right away, both on the dust jacket and the cover. Some of the biggest indicators here are on the front of the camera. This knob is unique to specific models. Taking off the dust jacket, we get an incredibly detailed side view. This is an exposure compensation dial, in place of where the shutter settings usually are for a camera of this era. There's a typical hot shoe which doesn't reveal too much except that it has one. The lens is incredibly detailed and accurate in terms of the typical settings you'd see. The lens and the lens mount are the giveaway here, and users of the cameras will already be yelling at their screens. This is an Olympus OM system camera. How can I tell? Not only do Olympus lenses have a unique look about them, but the shutter control is on the mount, and this is unique, at least as far as I know, to Olympus. Now, given the date The Killing Joke was released, and the clues so far, this could be an Olympus OM1 or OM2. Still, those are pretty old cameras, as the Olympus OM2 was released at the end of 1975. To me, at this point though, the clues all pointed to OM2, and I began production of this video, including scanning the proper magazine references and preparing commercials from my database. One thing I couldn't get over was this part right here, which is usually a PC sync for lighting, and the OM2 doesn't have it. I think it's important to note that this illustration of the Joker has origins in real life. Brian Boland posed in front of a mirror and created the image based on these concept shots. When I looked at the photos of him posing for the iconic image, there was something that looked like a PC sync terminal. I was flustered and frustrated and ready to throw in the towel until it dawned on me that what I was looking at was a mirrored reflection of the camera and Boland. The self-timer was on the wrong side. This also confirmed for me at the time that it's the OM2 because while the name OM1 is only printed on the top, OM2 is printed on the front as well by the rewind knob right here. Even though the Olympus OM2 was released in late 1975, I didn't find too many references to it until a couple of months into 1976. It was meant to be a follow-up to the popular OM1, but not designed as a replacement and instead advertised along it. This is best described in the article Kepler on the SLR, released in Modern Photography in February 1976, where he says, "It in no way replaces the OM1, but is a distinct addition to it. The main difference between the OM1 and 2 is the OM2 has an automatic exposure system, whereas the OM1 is fully manual. Because of this pairing, they were often advertised together, like this ad from the November 1976 issue of Popular Photography and this from the October issue of Peterson's Photographic. The OM2 is praised for its compact size, bright viewfinder, and unique control set.
一眼レフが変わった。オリンパスが変えた。今、マイクロセコンドの光を捉えた驚異の電子システム。オリンパス。
The computer.
One thing that kept bothering me though was why there was a PC sync terminal. Artistic license is the only explanation I could come up with at the start of this. There are variations of the OM2, the OM2N, and the OM2S. The 2S has a sync port on the front, but no self-timer lever. If we look back to the first pencil sketch, completed on August 8th, 1986, it's not even there. If we also look at the scene where the Joker shows up with the camera, it's not there either. It is, however, on the cover of the first printing. Then there were the discrepancies on the top. The exposure compensation dial has ISO and ASA printed. This area is where you'd set your film speed. This depiction of a 35mm camera is incredibly accurate, except no speed was set. Film speed wasn't measured by ISO regularly until the late 1970s, and looking at the top of the OM2, it just says ASA. There's also this button marked R. Looking at the pictures of the camera variations again, I looked at the top of the OM2S and behold, identical printing and the missing button. Oh yeah, and a sync port on the front. In the same way the Joker has multiple origins, so does this camera. It's also a contradiction as it has two film rewind releases, the one on the front, modeled after the OM2, and the other on the top, modeled after the 2S. The OM2S program was released in 1984 and sold until 1988, so if Bolin kept up with the times, he may have replaced his OM2 during production and incorporated elements. The advertising has some pretty wild claims, stating in this January 1986 full-page ad in Peterson's Photographic that the light meter in the Olympus OM2S program is so sensitive it even works in this kind of light. By the end of '86, Olympus had several models in their OM system lineup. In this ad released in the November issue of Popular Photography, we see the OM4T, OMPC, the original OM1, and oh my god, an OMG, all alongside the OM2S program. The ad states, built on the OM4 chassis, the OM2S program automatically sets shutter speed and apertures with OM system lenses, flashes, motors, backs, and focusing screens. It also offers auto and spot metered manual modes for creative control. The most advanced program SLR, but not the most expensive. I guess I shouldn't be surprised that a camera used by the Joker has contradictions. The name Witz is German for joke, and Witzmacher means Joker, but this word is Polish for Joker. This means Joker in Hungarian, and this means Joker in Albanian. I couldn't figure out this one at first. Assuming it said Joker, I looked at a bunch of different translations, and sure enough, it's Greek. Another question that came to mind during my research, a question that I will leave to you, is what film do you think the Joker was using? I'll accept real and fake answers. If the camera was called a Witz, what would the film be called? The things to keep in mind are that it's a 35mm color film and probably high speed, as he didn't use a flash and shot perfectly exposed images with indoor lighting. My theory is that it's Kodacolor VR, which I did a video on, and I'll leave a link to it in the description. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure and check out my other video on Spider-Man's cameras. Please consider becoming my patron on Patreon, and thanks to those of you who are already subscribed. Sign up for my monthly newsletter to keep up with everything that I do, and follow me on Threads if you're so inclined. And until next time, stay classic.